Double Zam with it. Today we're going to talk about relationships. The relationships that I've had throughout my life. And then on the next video series, we're going to dive right into the situation with my children and their mothers and different stuff like that. Last video we talked about Precious. That was my first little crush, I imagine. And that's when I was a little bitty kid. So far back I can't even remember what she looked like. I've always been a shy person, so most of the relationships I had came from either setups or people I knew or people that knew me and knew the other person. My first girlfriend, I think I was about 8 or 9 years old, something like that. That was so-called my quote-unquote first girlfriend. But anyway, we lived on Garden at 1514 Garden, right on the corner of Garden and Claiborne. And they lived right across the street from us. She was a little bit older than me. So I think I was about 8 or 9 and she could have been 11 or 12 or 13 or something like that. But anyway, you know, we had a little boyfriend, girlfriend thing going on. And that was pretty cool. I was about 15 years old. I said I was going to keep all the names out of it. So there'll be some form of anonymity in here. So people might not want their names mentioned or whatever. And my second girlfriend, basically first, second, it's all the same because 8 or 9 years old, who has a girlfriend? What you know about a girlfriend? You know what I mean? So I think the second one, when I met this cute little girl, and I think I was about 14 or 15 or something like that, and she was like 12 or 13, something like that, because we're 2 years apart. And I met her through some friends at the church that I went to. She lived right around the corner from the church that we went to, and her and a mutual friend were friends, and we met like that. And some kind of way I was invited to her little birthday party. Not little, but you know, we were children, we were kids, you know, babies when you think back about it. But anyway, we met, we had a pretty good long relationship. On and off, it was kind of on and off because we were kids, we didn't know. We grew up knowing each other and different stuff like that. But anyway, moving on from that, let's see, who was after that? I had a lot of little crushes because, like I say, I was always a shy kid and I always did like pretty girls. You know what I'm saying? I just like girls, to be honest with you. But when I was younger, it was always the light skin with the pretty hair, different stuff like that. And I think that, again, I think that came from my grandmothers and my aunts and all of them. They were like real pretty light-skinned ladies with pretty hair and stuff like that. Anyway, all of that came from that, but then we'll move on. I had a few girlfriends in between as I grew up and became a teenager and different stuff like that. But I'll just talk about the most important one. I met this girl. I actually met this girl in New Orleans, and I actually moved. I actually moved to Texas with this girl and her mother, and that was pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? And with the girl before that, we never did like say, okay, officially break up and all that kind of stuff. But we were on and off, like I say, because we were young, and I worked a lot. So she kind of wanted a boyfriend that was going to be able to spend time with her and go different places with her and all that kind of stuff. And I was always at work. You know what I'm saying? That was my thing back then. Eventually moved back home because my grandmother was telling me that my mother's mother was telling me that I needed to come back home. I didn't need to be, out of state living with somebody and all of that different kind of stuff. But anyway, it was a cool relationship. But I think one reason that we really kind of went our separate ways, it was never like, most of the breakups that I had, they were like never like mean or bad breakups like that. But it was just that, like I say, my grandmother was telling me that I needed to come back home, and I didn't need to be living with somebody, and I'm young. I'm out, I think I was like 18 or 19, early, 18, 19, 20, somewhere early in that stage of life. And so she was just only telling me, right, that I didn't need to be living with somebody and I needed to be back home. So, and then another thing about that relationship is like we always I knew kind of how she felt about me, but always kind of had this dude. That's kind of crazy. But I always had this other dude in mind, because while we were dating, she was living there and I was living in New Orleans before I moved there. But then this guy name kept coming up, and so he was always like in the back of my head, like something ain't right. I don't know if whatever. But anyway, that was how that ended. I moved back home, and like I said, it was never no hatred or love lost or nothing like that. So I moved back home. After that, I got back with the girl that I had been dating way before that. You know what I'm saying? And we got back together, and we were together for a while. And she had actually went away to school and came back. Got back with her. We stayed together for a while. And that whole work thing came along again, because in those days, I had started working, well, even when I was in high school, I had started working at Popeyes and churches and different stuff like that. And that was like my whole life, because I used to work, and I worked doubles. If somebody didn't show up, I'll stay there and work it. So I just worked a lot. And she didn't care for that much. So we kind of went on our separate ways, because again, she wanted somebody that, even though we were older at the time, she still wanted a boyfriend. She wanted somebody that could spend time with her. And I guess at the time, I just wasn't that dude. Because I was trying to get paid, you feel me? Moving on from that, I met my first wife. My first wife went to school with my sister, so they were pretty close. But I kind of knew of them through like the chorus, but I was never in chorus in high school. I was in band, and then I quit high school, I think in 11th grade. But anyway, they went to school together, and so that's how that kind of came. I don't know if she sent message through my sister, but it was some kind of way it went through my sister that I met her. And like I said, when I was younger, I was all about the light skin, pretty hair, all of that. And man, this was one of the prettiest dark skinned girls I ever seen. And so I was hooked when I saw her, you know what I'm saying? So we talked, we dated, and we eventually got married. I think we should have waited a while before we got married, but it was a lot going on at the time. Her family was really into church, and they didn't, they were really into church. And I think what it was, for the most part, was that at that time I had my own apartment. And I think her mother felt like every time we went somewhere, we was going to be at my apartment, which wasn't the case. But I think that's how she, that's how she felt. So that was kind of like, that's how that marriage thing got put on the table. I mean, we were really close, and I think eventually we would have, but I would have gotten married even still, but I think it was kind of pushed up a little bit. Not that they pushed us to do it, but we were at that point, we wanted to spend time with each other. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, we weren't always at my my apartment or whatever else. We went different places to movies and different stuff, like people that date do, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, that's how that went along. And we were married for like 7 years, but that whole 7 years, it was like she was really into her family, and rightfully so, you know, because you got to keep in mind, we were actually still kids. We were young and in our 20s or whatever, but I think when we got married, I was 22 and she was like 18 or 19 or something like that. But anyway, we were young, you know what I'm saying? And back then we thought, oh, I'm grown, I'm a man now, you know, 20 years old, I'm grown, I'm a man, whatever. So anyway, the whole deal with that, or the issue with that, was that she really wanted to spend a lot of time with her family. I think missing her family, or just going through adulthood or beginning adulthood stage, she was a little depressed at times. I was off and on with work and different stuff like that, even though I was always a hard worker. Like I said in my other video, I didn't stay in one place a long time. You know what I'm saying? I would bounce from Popeyes to churches to, I worked in an Italian restaurant, you know, different stuff like that. And I think that's where it first started to go wrong. And then I felt like she didn't really care. You know, I was young. I didn't know. And she was young. She didn't know. So I felt like she didn't really care. And, you know, I've always been a one-woman's man. I never really I didn't do the infidelity thing. That just wasn't me, because I'm not good at lying. I don't like keeping up with all of that. But to be honest, that was the first infidelity. That was the first time, you know, I kind of was into that. And the reason being, it's never an excuse, but the reason being was that I just didn't think she cared. You know, when we got older, and after we had divorced for a long time, and we talked, and I'm older, you know, I was older then, so I could understand. But she really cared about her family, and you should. And I thought she just didn't care, because it was girls that used to call the house for me. We were platonic, but it was nothing to her, and I had never been in something like that. You know what I'm saying? Who gonna call your house and your woman don't mind them calling, is it? You know. But anyway, long story short, we went through that. That was the first time I had dealt with infidelity. I cheated on her because the other girl was showing me some attention, and that's been my whole thing my whole life. Is if somebody showed me attention, me being insecure and the way I was, that was like one of the things that, you know, perked me up. That was one of the things that did something good for my soul, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that went on. We broke up. We got back together. We didn't divorce or nothing like that, but it was eating me up so bad, I actually told her about it. And I can remember it was a Super Bowl Sunday. And my friends was like, man, you're not gonna say that. She ain't gonna never. It was just eating me up, so I had to tell her. We broke up for a little while. We got back together. We stayed together. It was good. You know, it was on and on. We stayed together. We eventually moved to California together. That was my first time moving to California, I think in 1990 or something like that. Went back there and stayed there a while. The first thing that kind of blew me was, you know, I used to be this hopeless romantic, flowers and all of that kind of stuff. So she was supposed to get on the plane and come after I went and got a job and got everything, so to speak, situated. She was supposed to be on the plane that particular day, and I had gotten flowers in the room with the jacuzzi and all of that kind of stuff. She was my wife at the time, expecting her to come, and she missed the plane. And to me, I'm like, oh, see, there she go again with her family, everything her family. She's spending so much with her time with her family, she couldn't even get to her flight anyway. Went through that, stayed together. Eventually, we decided to separate. We separated. I went back. We separated. She stayed in California. I moved back to New Orleans. I started dating this other girl. And, you know, we dated and dated and dated until I decided, you know what, I think I'm going to go back to California. Not for the marriage, but my main reason for moving to California was to have more opportunity as far as with my singing and different stuff like that. So anyway, moved back to California. And on my way back to California, I met this girl on the bus. Lord have mercy. I used to ride the bus because I never did like flying. I always had a fear of flying. I flew once, and that was it. But you know, it wasn't a bad flight, but I just had a fear of flying. Okay, so I get back to I'm on my way back to California, and I meet this girl, and this girl was short stacked with junk in the trunk. Like they used to say, this thing was a stallion for real. But anyway, my whole thing in life was that when somebody, you know, and I didn't always just fall for somebody because they showed me attention, but being insecure and always being shy and insecure, and you meet somebody that's kind of not super aggressive, but they let you know, hey, I'm feeling you, whatever. That was a good thing for me. So anyway, met this girl. She started talking. We exchanged numbers. We eventually hook up when we get settled back in LA. Now, mind you, I'm living in the house with my ex-wife. Well, she wasn't my ex at the time, but we had separated for a couple years or a year or so, whatever. And I had been dating the other lady, the other girl in New Orleans. So then I go get there, and so I know she got friends, and I got friends. You know, we living in the same house, but only because it's feasible financially. Because the house that we were living in, my mother and my aunt also lived there, because it was like a mutual thing that everybody would, you know, just chip in and do. But anyway, we lived there, and eventually I hooked up with the other girl. We the other one went back. The wife went back. The wife at the time, she moved back to New Orleans. I stayed, got closer with the other girl. We eventually that's when I had my first child. We eventually had a baby. Then she kind of went away. But she didn't. But that's another story, and I'll touch on that in the next video. And then she came back. But while she was going away, I met this other girl. And eventually started dating her. So, or let me say this, before we had the baby, or before she got pregnant, I heard that the other lady at home, the other girl at home, told me that she might have been, no, not might have, she was pregnant in her tubes, and she was going to eventually have to, you know, she was going to have surgery. So my thing was, you know, if I was a part of that, so I should be there to support her. So I'm telling this other girl that, you know, this is what's going on. We hadn't got really close at the time, so I'm saying I'm gonna go back home, you know, and be with her through this little situation, and then I may be back or whatever. That's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that in the next series. But anyway, moving on. She eventually had a baby. We went through some stuff. I was dating another woman, and then she came back, so to speak. So I told the other woman, look, man, I always had this picture of life about, you know, when my dad was always there, I wanted to be with my children. And they all knew that. Even the first girl that got pregnant, she even knew all of that stuff. So I tell the second one, look, I'm going to go back you know, and deal with that, because I don't want my child to grow up without her dad there or whatever. Long story short, I eventually went back. The other one didn't like it at all, but I went back, and she got pregnant with the second child. Moving on, we eventually split up. I got back with the other woman, and she got pregnant. I'll explain it. But anyway, moving on. After that, I met my ex-wife. We met, I already had 3 children, and I met my ex-wife. They were all babies though. I met my ex-wife. We dated, got married, had 2 more children. Well, my son came before we got married, but then we had my daughter, so I had 5 children. And then eventually moved on from that. And like I say, all of those relationships started off good. They weren't all bad. You know what I'm saying? They weren't all bad at all. But relationships have bad times. Relationships have good times. Relationships have disagreements and misunderstandings and all of that. Stayed married to her for 20 years, something like that, or we were together for 20-something years. And then in the end of that marriage, it was infidelity on her part. And the way we were, the way we felt about each other, the way I felt about her, I wouldn't have been able to live with that. You know, I know some people think or feel like you could have just worked that out, and some people can. But with the way we were, I wouldn't have been able to live with that. Because I already kind of had trust issues, and I already had my own little issues, you know what I'm saying? A lot of things that I couldn't put my hands on back then, you know what I'm saying? I already had those, but anyway, moving forward, we went through that. Like I said, it was good and bad. It wasn't all bad. I wasn't all good, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't all bad, but those were some of the times where I mentioned depression. Those were some of the times where a lot of my bouts with depression came in, you know, because whether it was times where I wasn't working or times where I would do really good in the music industry or in the business, you know, where we'll have movies or we'll have whatever, and then all of a sudden that was it, you know what I'm saying? Then I would have to go and get a security job, which I hated. Most of the jobs that I had were like evening jobs or swing shift, which made it hard for me to do other stuff, you know what I'm saying? But I didn't really date for like maybe a year and a half after we separated, you know what I'm saying? And my ex-wife and I separated. I didn't really date. I took it hard. It was rough on me. I stayed to myself. People started hitting me up on Facebook, and I was like, you know what? I'm not really ready, because I was kind of toe up, you know what I'm saying? So I didn't really talk to people for a long time. At least 9 months to a year, I didn't really even talk to anybody, you know what I'm saying? And so then I started dated a couple people, and eventually ended up talking to one of my old friends from way back in the day, you know what I'm saying? And it was crazy, because it's like everything came back full circle, you know what I'm saying? And God rest the dead, but it just so happened, excuse me, that her husband passed, and my ex-wife and I divorced like around the same time, or we separated around the same time, and I think it was like 2 or 3 years later. And then we got married, so I'm on my 3rd marriage now. And we have a good relationship, you know what I'm saying? Great support system. She's my support, I'm her support. To be honest, I even talked to her about doing this video to make sure that she was going to be okay with it, you know, and she is, because she knows, you know, that I love her, you know what I'm saying? And she also know that I'm one of them people that you get one time. Sometimes you might get two, but you get one time. But once you do me, that's a wrap. You ain't got to worry about me hating you, because I don't hate people. You don't have to worry about me not liking you or not being cordial or not even being cool with you. But as far as dating you again or trying to do anything with you, that ain't who I am. But anyway, I don't want to make this video too long. I probably left out a lot. I left out a lot on purpose. I am going to tell my truth, or what I feel, you know, when it comes to both of my baby's mothers and my ex-wife, which is my baby's mother as well. So that's going to be in the next video, because I don't want this one to be too long. And those are some of my main relationships. I mean, I had relationships where they were strictly platonic. That was for a long time, because I was always oh, you like a brother to me. You know what I'm saying? I was always that dude. I was always, you know, I would always listen, and they would always tell me about their boyfriends and what they do and what they're not doing. And so I was always that dude, you know what I'm saying? So I had a lot of female friends, but they weren't all, you know, they were, most of them were platonic. And I've had my share of other relationships too that may not have worked out. After I got divorced the second time, I just realized after that relationship, I needed to, even if I didn't say it to the other person, I needed to say to myself, that don't work for me. You know what I'm saying? I'm old enough, I'm grown enough, I'm smart enough, I've been through enough to see through some of the foolishness, you know. So why play yourself? Why not say, look, man, look, this don't work for me. You good people, we cool, but that don't work for me. You know what I'm saying? And just keep it moving, you know, instead of trying to stay there and work it out and fix it up. And if it ain't gonna work, it ain't gonna work. And the longer you stay, the harder it's gonna be. So just cut it off, or be friends, or do whatever, you know what I'm saying? And I've been able to be friends with people that I dated. My first wife, we never were on bad terms, you know what I'm saying? Even before I got married this time, we were, you know, she came to my brother's funeral, my youngest brother's funeral, and we're cool, you know what I'm saying? We don't talk all the time. We actually became friends. It wasn't, you know, I'm gonna go look for her and get back with her. It wasn't that, you know, and I had love for her, but it was on a different level, you know, because like I said, I never thought, and she told me different later on down the line, but I never thought that she really cared. I'm saying, I thought she cared, but I didn't think she really felt a certain way about me, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, all of that's water under the bridge. Those are my relationships. And in the next video, I'm gonna dive into the thing that I've been waiting to get into. I didn't just want to jump right into it head first, but I really do need to get it out of what happened with my children, what happened with myself and their mothers, and what happened. But it's not just an opinion. It's from my standpoint, from my viewpoint, where I was in those relationships, or what I did, or what happened in those situations. And I really need to do this. I never really wanted to, but I really need to do it because my children are hurting behind it, and they hate me over it. You know what I'm saying? I got 4 beautiful girls that hate me. My youngest, I don't know why she hate me, but you know, I need to do this to get it out. And even if they keep on hating me, they'll at least hear my side of the story. So stay tuned for that. And I'll share that with you in the next video. And I'm praying to God that my children see it, you know, and that they get a better understanding. And I keep saying my children because they are my children, but they're grown. You know what I'm saying? They have children of their own, but they're still my children. You know what I'm saying? They're not children, they're grown. But I keep saying that, and that's because I want them to start a healing process. You know what I'm saying? Even if they need to go and get counseling, even if they need to figure it out, even whatever they need to do, but they still need to hear it from me because I've never told it to them. They don't know. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, look for the next video, and I'll let you guys know when I put it out. But that's going to be what I'll be talking about in the next one. Thank you guys for hanging with me so long, and just keep rolling with me, and we're gonna get through this together. You know what I'm saying? So peace and one love.